Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and today it is time for the return of a very popular segment. It's time for 3 random cards. Now, if you've never seen one of these before, you can find a link to one right up here somewhere. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go onto Gatherer back here. I'm going to click random card 3 times and tell you some stuff off the top of my head about that card, and then look up in Multiverse, our internal tool, and see if there's any fun design notes on that card too. Truly, I don't even know what's going to happen in this show, so we're going to find out together. Ready? Let's do it. All right, here we go. Time for the first random card. We have Conclave Cavalier. So Conclave Cavaliers is a 10-card cycle across Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance. Often in a Ravnica set, if we do a cycle in one set, we'll repeat it in the others too. Now in this case, it's what we call a CC/DD card. This means that its mana cost is CC, 2 colors, and then DD, 2 other colors. Now why did we do this in Guilds of Ravnica? Well, I was actually on the design team for this one. And the idea was in Ravnica, it's often really good to splash extra colors. Playing a 3, 4, or even 5 color deck is not out of the question. But the whole world is around these 2-color guilds. So how could we help incentivize people to play 2-color Magic? And one of the ways Eric Lauer happened upon was simply really cost-intensive cards. A card like Conclave Cavalier plays pretty well in a Selesnya deck that is just 2 colors. You'll find your white, white, green, green. But in a 3 or 4 color deck, this card is really out most of the time. You could play it, but you probably aren't going to be able to cast it until later in the game. On the whole, I think this worked out pretty good, although not perfect. One of the big problems with them is that even in a dedicated 2-color deck, sometimes you wouldn't have all the mana you need to cast it on turn 4. You could draw 3 plains and 1 forest and still not be able to cast this reward for playing exactly 2 colors. The second problem is that across all 10 guilds, it was really hard to get them balanced perfectly, and some guilds just ended up with better ones than others. That said, in the draft process, they certainly accomplished their goal of getting people to stick to 2 colors. And if we went back to Ravnica, I could see us trying this out again. All right, that's it for Conclave Cavalier. Time for card number 2. We have Spiteful Prankster. So this card is from Jumpstart. And one really interesting thing about Jumpstart is just how theme forward it was. Really, every one of the packets had to have a strong theme. So there were a lot of new cards made that just filled holes that were needed. And in this particular packet that this shows up in, it's all about this creature type. So we just needed more of that type to exist in the game. This card is not going to blow your socks off or anything, but it does a lot of really important work in this packet. It really makes that theme come together. And when you're designing Jumpstart cards, unlike a commander deck, not every card has to hit super hard and be really, really, really deep and interesting. Just like a common or uncommon for a main set, sometimes you just need a nice role filler. And that's exactly what this card is. There were a ton of cards in Jumpstart that were created this way, theme forward. There was a cool idea for a packet that we thought would be resonant, and so we just knew we needed to make some cards to make it work. There haven't really been any interesting multiverse notes for the past 2 ones, but maybe there will be for the 3rd one. So let's move on to card number 3. Here we go. Oh, Helm of Obedience. Okay, now we're talking. Helm of Obedience showed up in Alliances, and unfortunately, it's never been reprinted because it was on the reserve list. But it has shown up on Magic Online in Masters Edition sets, which is pretty cool. Now, if you've never heard of Masters Edition, this was basically modern Master style sets before those ever existed. For example, they did some pretty wonky stuff, like in the 4th one, which had the Urzatron lands in the basic land slot. So they really tried out some fun draft environments. One of my favorite things in Magic is playing with my opponent's cards. So I love Helm of Obedience. It's the kind of effect I've always had a knack for. I mean, one of the first cards I ever designed was Soul Ransom, a control Magic variant. So this card is pretty cool in my book as a way to take what your opponent has, but you're never really sure exactly what you're going to get. Some of you might know it more, though, for its combo potential. One of the weird quirks about Helm of Obedience is it specifically calls out putting cards into your opponent's graveyard. So if your opponent doesn't have a graveyard, well, you can't ever hit that condition. So with Leyline of the Void, you can just deck out your opponent's library right away. They aren't putting cards in their graveyard, so just keep on going. And this card is unfortunately too old for any multiverse commons. So what was going on with it? Who knows? Thank you all for watching 3 random cards, a direct trip into my brain, and the random card feature of Gatherer. If you have any thoughts, let me know in the comments down below. If you don't want to see another 3 random cards episode, you can find it right here. I'll talk with you again soon. And in the meantime, may you find just the right random card for your deck. You got this. And then from August 9th to September 5th, it's time to escape with Ox of Agonas. Yes, that's right, it's an actual ox in here. They're not all just Minotaurs. From October 11th to November 7th, you have everyone's favorite Minotaur Planeswalker, Angrath, the Flame Chain. It even has some sweet, brand new artwork to boot.